Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Today's Weather Tonight. Here, as always, I'm your vibologist, Cloud Hudson, at your service. Let's just dig into today's weather. We've got, again, quite a bit of dreary weather. It looks like there are a lot of storms brewing as we head into the end of the month and into the next month. As we head into the end of January, our storms are going to keep picking up their pace and shaping up to be something really special, but we are still in the midst of the January thaw that everyone talks about. But I do expect some February snow, hopefully. Let's go ahead and take a look at, I should share this screen. Or, of course, I could always just turn the screen around because I've got a second display up here, but I don't think that would work very well for you guys. It would probably just give some sort of glare. Let's not do that. Welcome. This will probably be the last day that I have such a low resolution on my stream, as I've got an upgraded camera coming. So that'll be really, I have the camera upgrade. I just now got the cord needed to plug it into the computer to use as a webcam. So I'll have much higher quality video soon. All right. So we see a beautiful mid-latitude cyclone just making its way across the eastern seaboard of the United States. We can see that it's after dark. Lots of hot spots everywhere. This is a slightly different map than I've shown you before. This is Zoom Earth. This is a slightly more of a composite map, and you can zoom out a lot farther on this one and still show satellite view. So we've got this beautiful comma-shaped curve coming up right here. And remember, comma-shaped storms are just a good time to pause in the middle of the sentence of your life and take some stock. Sit down and look at what's happening. Be grateful for your material reality if it protects you from this storm, and be hopeful about it if you are in the midst of the brutal elements. Very hard to do. Now, let's see. As we zoom out, we can see there the storm kind of tracks all the way through the upper Atlantic, going into Iceland, where they are still experiencing some light snow, and slightly feeding into this nice current of air, keeping the United Kingdom and Ireland and the rest of Europe pretty warm. We've got some snow in the Alps too, but that's pretty typical. Pretty interesting weather for an area that is right now seeing a lot of protests from farmers because their diesel subsidies are being cut, and all the farming equipment they use runs on diesel. Now, if they didn't do agro farms, that wouldn't, like big ag style farms, that wouldn't be a problem. But the problem comes in where you're not allowed to keep your land if you don't farm in a certain way. It's a very complicated issue, but I am encouraged by seeing the farmers stand up, and it's good to talk about this too, because it's not getting a whole lot of mainstream news coverage. Let's see. We are still seeing a lot of rain here in the Pacific Northwest. Thankfully, it's slowed down in Southern California. Let's see what's happening in the global South. Remember that they are in wintertime down here. Yeah. And we see lots of, this map also has wildfires indicated on it. Seeing lots of fires all over here. Only a few in South America. Pretty hard to distinguish. This is I'm sorry. I'm saying so much today. So many vocal pauses right now. Here in Brazil, we see the rainforest effect taking place, making its little terrarium. You know how you have those little glass jars full of moss and rocks that like keep their own ecosystem going. That's how a rainforest works. And that's how mountainous forested areas remain self-sustaining and lush. Remember that you cannot get rid of the jungle without dying. The whole planet is, if you try to live without forests for too long, it's going to get weird and bad. Over here in the Indian Ocean, we've got Candace, a remnant low, and Angrek, intense tropical cyclone. And then this is Kirili, the remnant low of that typhoon we've been seeing out in Australia. Now, remember, we are in El Nino phase of the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So this area is really convective right now, got a lot of energy to give up to creating storms here. And we're seeing a lot of earthquake and volcanic activity in here as well, which is very typical with so many subduction zones. Now, let's see. Let's take a look at some of our lows that are forming off the West Coast, because that is kind of a sneak preview into what our weather will be in the continental United States soon. And this one was kind of formed from both Mexico or equatorial air mass and a polar air mass, but these are really shaping up to be some significant storms. These are the ones that I'm looking at for February winter storms, possibly. This one right here is just giving us nice rainfall everywhere. Let's take a look at we'll see if their precipitation map loads. Yeah, you can see it organizing itself really well out here. And as I show you the Southern Hemisphere Pacific, we can see all kinds of, this is where you see the sea surface temperature anomaly, these bands. And you can see it's really spitting up a lot of moisture into the atmosphere available to convect any way possible. Now, let's take a look at the temperatures. Temperatures looking, or did I say it's winter in the Southern Hemisphere? I meant that it's summer in the Southern Hemisphere and it's winter here. Okay, my bad. Very hot in Australia, Papua New Guinea, Indonesia. Actually, Indonesia not looking too bad, but remember, we've got some active eruptions in this area, which I wonder if that is cooling off things any. And this is where we'd had some earthquake activity throughout the past week. Remember, still very cold up in Russia. The tundra is really a cold desert. Interesting V formation out here in the North Atlantic. This is the cold pool. Again, remember how we want that. We want churning in the ocean. We want the top and bottom layers to mix at least a little bit. Well, the colder it gets at the bottom of the Northern Atlantic, the harder it's going to be to percolate warm water down into it. So the warm water is just going to sit on top, making some quite weird currents out here. And it's just going to get weirder as the days continue. But so far, it hasn't spelled doom for the British Isles yet, because they are still getting a modicum of a skosh of warm air slapped up into here. But they'll be looking just like Russia if we don't slow down this. If we don't speed back up the ocean overturning cycle out here. Now, let's go ahead and stop worrying about that. Let's look at the humidity. Where's our humidity out here? Looking at relative humidities. Got a lot of dry air in Mexico and the Western United States. That's good because they can't take too much water. And lots of moisture here. Let's take a look at we're so, and we are getting rainy, hot weather in the nice forested areas of Africa, and staying very moist on into Pakistan, Afghanistan, Uzbek, all the Stan regions. Still seeing lots, and what I was talking about with the rainforest effect in Brazil, you can see very obviously there. Let's take a look at just our winds. Just our wind speeds. Again, kind of relatively quiet, not intensely sharp winds here until we get to this weird wedge up in the North Atlantic, just really wanting to peak down here. Now I'd be very interested to see what the North Atlantic oscillation, the atmospheric oscillation, not the oceanic oscillation, that is doing right now, because that's like measured at a difference between the Azores and I believe it's somewhere here in Iceland and there. What was I saying? Oh yeah, just a very weird pattern setup here. I'm not really sure what's happening other than that cold pool. Things are speeding up, and we have this offshore, this nice high pressure system still going pretty strong out here, but not as strong as it was. So overall, wet, rainy, classically beautiful weather. Not beautiful, classically dreary weather, but to me, it's beautiful because I think that these storms are just such beautiful work of spirals. And I'm, like I've said before, I'm on this earth to appreciate the spirals. Let's look at that. Let me see if I got, is it going to let me do a measure distance, measure area? Yeah, let's measure distance. Okay. So from, let's say this is the top. This is around the top of the storm here in the bend in Michigan, all the way to offshore of Florida. We're looking at 1,110 miles. I bet I could pick that as 1,111 miles. Very 1111 mile long storm. Then we've got, how wide is it? Oh yeah, buddy. That is beautiful. Let's go ahead and move on from the atmospheric weather and go down into the terrestrial weather. Let's see what we've got going on in the geosphere, in the lithosphere. How are y'all doing? Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Glad to see I've got a couple viewers. Remember, I'm streaming on 3 different platforms, so if you don't see other viewers in your platform, they might be on the other ones. Let's take a look at what the earthquakes have been doing today. See where the rumblies and the earth tumbly is. Do you like that? Winnie the Pooh-ification of very serious science. Let's go from yesterday to today. Latest available, magnitude range all, and depth all. Apply. I don't know why I can't bookmark it to be in that exact order, but I can't. Ooh, all right. Right off the bat, I'm noticing we've got a 6.1 in Tehisco, Guatemala. That would be 170 kilometers deep, or 107 kilometers deep, and a magnitude 6.1. And remember, we've seen at this like about 100-kilometer down depth, we've seen quite a few earthquakes in the Guatemala and Costa Rica region. In the past few days. Looks like something's trying to happen there. Perhaps, went way too far. Perhaps it's kind of settling in of all the energy that came out of the the 7.0 magnitude earthquake we had on the border of Peru and Brazil the other day. And you see more quakes right there at the 100-ish kilometer region down. But these are 4.2s, 4.4s. And even shallower than that, we saw 4.6 at 50 kilometers down. So energy working its way down the coast. Zoom out. All right. Still got more earthquakes working their way down the west coast of America. Oh, look at this. We've got a more significant earthquake off the coast of Alaska at, again, that 10 kilometers down, 4.2 magnitude, between a 4 and a 5 magnitude at 10 kilometers down. I'm always wondering, what's going on there? Is this really what's happening with this? We're seeing a lot of activity in Alaska, which is quite normal, but a little bit, it's just really pronounced how well this is showing up on the island chain that goes up into the Fairbanks region through the Aleutian Island chain. It's really, and we also had I bet this is a 10 kilometer 4.4. Yep, 10 kilometer deep 4.4 in Greenland. That's the first time we've seen one in Greenland. Let's look at, what did we have here? Just north of Sacramento and west of Sacramento, north of San Francisco. Oh, that is very shallow for a 4.18. 2 kilometers down, barely 3 kilometers down. Oh, that's at the geysers again. That's at the geysers. That's from yesterday. But we did continue to see some aftershock tremors after yesterday's earthquake there. Still seeing a lot of tremors all the way through this whole circle region. Like, let me just draw this picture for you. It's really, I mean, this into this, into this. We're seeing again that cardioid curve that is very natural in the state. Not that last one. That was me going a little overboard. But they go up into here and swirl around. And what is right here? But this is a giant caldera underneath Yellowstone. This is like the furnace for Yellowstone. So all of this is the same magma body. And then across these fault zones, obviously, we're getting a lot of earthquakes right here. It's the San Andreas Fault region and the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. Let's go ahead and let me make sure that I've got my plate boundaries on here so that we can see that. I would love it if they had fissures as a viewable layer on here, but that's not where we're at right now. Let's take a look throughout. Oh, Louisiana popping up with one. Yeah. Okay, a 3.5 at 5 kilometers down. Not insignificant for Louisiana, I got to tell you. Oh, and there was a 2.5 as well at the same exact depth and spot. And they were about 7 hours apart. So it looks like the smaller 2.5 came first and then the 3.5 came. That's what people like colloquially call a foreshock, where the bigger earthquake is yet to come. We're just seeing the initial tremors at first. And again, we see that the line of earthquakes goes up into Oklahoma, then curls around in the New Madrid seismic zone. You see the shape, the upside down horseshoe shape, or like the horseshoe dumping out the luck shape, or like an N or a check mark. That is where the energy is going to flow through the craton. It did all the way up into Greenland. Now let's go all the way back out. Take a look. That was yesterday's from Italy. And is this a new earthquake? Yes, a new 5.1 at 11 kilometers down here in, what is this? Technically still Turkey. on the coast of Turkey, the western coast of Turkey, we've got a 5.1. I don't even know if that is onshore or not, but yeah, that is right on the coastline. So I wonder, man, 3 kilometers south of Özdere, Turkey. Özdere, I don't know. Sorry for butchering the name if I am. Again, very funny how they've got the plate boundaries marked so definitely there and then just nothing defined once we're into here, because I think that we would see that this would be pointing perhaps like a swirl, the way that we see in Fiji. Let's take a look, by the way, at let's see how we're doing over here in that Kyrgyzstan region. Yeah, still seeing quake after quake in quake after quake in the wake of the 7. Quite the shake up they've had. Sounding like Dr. Seuss. Today we had a 4.5 in Tajikistan. That's a more common place for it to happen, because also look at where the plate boundary's pointing. Gonna funnel energy that way. I'm just gonna keep saying it again. I think that these peaks and troughs in the waveform of the line of the plate boundary attenuate the energy. That's just my opinion. Now let's go to, okay, yeah, we did have a 4.1 in Afghanistan today. Nothing into Nepal though, and nothing sticking out in the South Indian Sea or Arabian Sea. Let's see. Also, nothing more from the Gulf of Aden region where we saw that other earthquake the other day. Now, we did have a 5.4, again, at 10 kilometers depth. Today at 9 UTC. Another 4.9 at about 150 kilometers down in Indonesia. And here in Papua New Guinea, we're seeing a vertical percolation of earthquakes. Because first we see this which one do we see first? First, we saw about 97 kilometers down at almost 2 p.m. Or actually not 2 p.m., 2 a.m., 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. That was yesterday. Okay, so first we had this 5.1 on the 26th, right at like 2 UTC, and then almost exactly 24 hours later, we saw a slightly deeper 5.5 at 215 kilometers down at time 215. That's funny. That's uncanny. It's 215.928 kilometers deep, and it occurred at UTC time 215 25.995. So very, very interesting. If you are at all observant of numerical coincidences, that's a neat one. And then followed up by a very shallow 5.1 at 10 kilometers depth. That one people definitely could have felt that. I wonder if they have. And then we also saw some here in the Philippines, moving our way up. Again, here's that 4.8 at 10 kilometers down, and a 5 at about 150 kilometers down. Interesting. Happening. When did it happen in comparison to that one? Yeah, this one, 215. So that one happened about 16 hours later, so not significantly related. Take a look out here near Samoa. Between Samoa and Tonga, we have a 5.4 at 20 kilometers down. Now that is a surprise. Okay, y'all, I get so excited to look at these, and I'm just so glad that you're here being nerds with me. Look at how evenly spaced these two are between the Izu Islands and what are they calling that? Near Micronesia. Um, it's 290 kilometers away from Micronesia, but they're calling it that. This is really like the Mariana Trench area. And they're right on either side of that big bend in that plate. Then we see more off the coast of Japan, see a magnitude 4.9 in Ichihara, Japan. And then this is again another culprit from the Noto Peninsula. 4.5 at 10 kilometers depth. I believe that that's the source of where all of that energy is coming from. And then we still got some happening out there along the chain. Yeah, let's go. Let's see, South America. We got anything? Nothing in the South Sandwich Islands. Yeah, looking pretty clear today. I'm going to go ahead and try to animate these quakes. Let's see if it'll let me while we're this zoomed out. Yeah, you see them just percolating all throughout the western states. Yep. And then we get another one. We're slowing down here. There we go. That's the other one. Hawaii also popping up. Seeing a lot of action. Again, they're also well evenly spaced. Look at how symmetrical that is. I can't even deal with that. I can't even tell you what's going on there without sounding crazy. Yeah, really, really cool stuff. Let's take a look now at our magma sphere. And when I say sphere, I don't mean like a ball. I mean like the area that the nexus. Volcanoes today. Volcanoes today. Volcanoes today on today's weather tonight. I'll make this such a fun time for you guys. Reventador, Sanjay, Nevada del Ruiz, Suanos Jima, Popo, Ibu, Reventador. We've got, all right, Suanos Jima still exploding. Ibu and Indonesia, volcanic ash advisory. Popo's still popping off. Significant volcanic emissions to 2,300 feet. That is really high up there. New volcanic emissions in Colombia, Ecuador, and continued volcanic emissions from Reventador. Still looking at explosive activities in Japan. Oh, Sakurajima has erupted officially as of yesterday. So really cool stuff popping off up there. Now, let's take a look at specifically Iceland because I want to see if we can pull up their uplift data again. I tried yesterday and couldn't get it. But yeah, there we go. Look at their crustal deformation. Let's take a look at Grimsfjall is prone to icing on antenna. Remember, I love to remind you guys that everything uses the same units, so they're sensitive to other forms of weather. Let's take a look at Reykjanes Peninsula, Meteorologist. I could just go through all of these, but let's look at very significant, discrete chunks of these lines, not really showing a slowdown in drift, not showing a slowdown in uplift for some of these places. After the eruptions, it's just getting worse. The Kyrgyzstan intrusion is the one that goes under Reykjavik, and it's not slowing down. It keeps drifting more and more and more, not being affected by each subsequent eruption because it's a different magma chamber than the one next to Svartsengi and Grindavik. And that one, as you can see, just continues to drift north and west, and well, from one side, and north and east from another side, and still just going up, up, up in that inflation. It's the land is literally rising centimeters per day sometimes. That's what the big jumps are, at the big centimeter per day. But that's a really steep uplift curve. That's a steep slope, and they're not really leveling off yet. Well, here we see a bit of a leveling off, but leveling off doesn't actually mean safety. That means that it's more like it's more like the latent heat of eruption. Do you know what I mean? So in a chemical reaction, the latent heat is the heat released or absorbed by chemical reaction. That's like the energy either used up or given out by a reaction. It looks like for a while that nothing's happening. Like when you look at the phase change chart, when you look at the way that, like, for example, going from like ice to water, water melting, when you look at the phase change for a while before it starts to melt, it doesn't look like it's melting. It looks like you're heating up the ice cube and nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden it starts to melt because there's been enough energy put into the system in order to make that phase change jump. That's kind of what I'm likening this to, of when you see it stop moving, that's not because nothing's moving. That's because we've gone from physical movement in the more like lateral mechanical movement area into putting all of that energy into melting the rock, melting the land. So when I see it like table off, you see how that happens right before eruptive times. That's where I'm trying to make the analogy of latent heat. I mean, it's kind of literally what's happening, of like, you have to have a time of, okay, we're at capacity. It's fully pressurized rock is the requirement for melting the rock. Like, it will want to swell and expand before it melts, but it is forced to melt when it can no longer swell and expand from the new heat and energy flowing in from the new magma. And then here you see some areas like didn't even get affected by the January eruption. This station right here, Grindavik, not even going down, no deflation after the eruption. Now, we did have some east to west movement, but that's probably because everything in Grindavik is kind of like moving side to side right now, tilting around. But it's kind of concerning to see it just inflate so rapidly above where it has been. I just see a lot of potential energy right here. I mean, look at this. Like, some of it didn't get better from the January eruption. It got worse. The ground started to swell more after this reaction, which is why I'm always curious about what are the electronic mechanisms happening? Like, what's the electricity going on here? Is there induced resonance? Is there an induced magnetic field between one magma dike and another? Is there one magma? Is it possible that the movement of magma, being like very rich in iron, could induce magnetic or electrical fields in the other ones near it? That's just a question I have. I'm not saying that's true. That's a question I have, is like, how much movement and charge would it take for that bulk of molten metal to induce a magnetic field in another chunk of molten metal? This is a really interesting one. But I don't want to spend too much time on this because it is just such a, I think this is the station that got offline for a little while. And then you see some areas of subsidence as well, like the area is dropping very steeply. Yeah, we're not looking less risky. In fact, geologists have said that the rate of uplift is even worse than it was before either of the December or January eruptions. At this rate, I think we're looking at a Valentine's Day eruption. If it keeps going every month, it would be sometime in February that we're going to see another eruption. But again, I'm not predicting volcanic activity. I'm not predicting earthquakes. I'm just saying, wow, interesting patterns that we're seeing. Very interesting patterns. So let's get off of this. Let's go over to our solar weather, because I believe that there is a connection between the solar weather and the geological weather. And ho, buddy, did we see a big increase in coronal mass ejections today? We went from number 28 up to 41. Don't make me do math. Take one away from those. We're down at 40 and 27. So 13. We saw 13 CM. Do you like the new math I just did? I do new math, but like it's not like cutting edge math, like the math that they teach in schools now. But I'm like, how is that confusing? How I do it anyway. Let's take a look at the one that could have had a potential partial halo. See if it'll load for me. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. We had 3. It went boom, boom, boom. Okay. Let me see if I can click here. Sometimes it'll let me drag this. Yeah. Okay. So first, flaring off in kind of 2 different directions there. Then exploding outwards. You can kind of see the interference patterns and the lobes of the petals of the flowers. Let's see how it goes again. There were like 3 or 4 right back to back. Like one popped off and then we got another big wave. Like it's almost like we uncorked the champagne and then there was a flow out. And then this is at the other side of the bottle, it dripping down. Look at that. Go. Like my son fart noises, it went. Is it immature to joke about? Is it morally wrong to make fart noises for coronal mass ejections when, if they're Earth direct, they could wipe out power and electronic communications for millions of people? I mean, we'll never know. Well, there's no way to know if it's irreverent to make fart noises for the sun. It just simply, there's no way to tell. There's no way to tell. No one can tell me whether that's irreverent or not. So I'm going to continue doing it. All right. Let's look at this one. Very interesting. Some of these speckles you see are different types of radiation particles that will also like kind of like TV static, only if TV static actually meant something. What does it mean? I don't know. Let's take a look. It's a fast one right there. Really fast one. It didn't really even show the entire eruption there. I was just looking at that because it looked so long, but let's take a look. Let's see. What was the one that really kicked us off today? I mean, the one with the partial halo was the one that kicked us off, it looks like. Oh, yes, that's beautiful. Look at that. It's like gorgeous hair. It looks like heat miser hair. Like, I don't know. Look at that. That's what I want my hair to look like. I want it to just want people to say, wow, that really looks like a coronal mass ejection on top of your head. Go. Okay. Fart Noises of the Sun by Cloud Hudson. Very mature broadcaster we have over here on our hands, me. Let's take a look at what these CMEs have done to the let's watch them on the pretty pictures. I mean, really cool to see this happening with so few sunspots visible on our Earth-facing disk. But I guess, I mean, we see 355 and 3560 are still active here on the edge. And I have a feeling that they came from these active regions rotating into Earth view. And possibly from the far side inducing resonance. Let's see. I want to look at 171 today. I never do this one on its own. Yeah, there we see one. See a lot of arcing. We see a lot. This is a good one to watch the ropes form. I mean, the holes don't look that prominent, but let's take a look at our regular guy where we can see the holes a little better. Yeah, there's one. And then see some arcing and sparking and little hot spots arising out of the deeper layers of the sun. Again, we have the same problem with the sun that we have with the earth. It's pretty hard to go inside there and look around. The atmosphere, we got great information on what the weather is doing in the atmosphere. But like, you can't put a weather station inside the ground, and you can't put one inside of the sun in the same way that you do put one inside of the atmosphere. It's a lot less penetrable, the plasma ball of the sun and the core of the earth. Look at this little heart shape on here. I like looking at analogous waveforms because look at that. Oh God, I can barely draw with this mouse. Need to get this on. I'm broadcasting from the touchscreen one. Maybe I need to draw this on my, hold please. Am I still, no, I'm not sharing the screen if it's not that window. Hold please. I'm going to draw on this and then I'm going to show you the picture. Okay. Let's see. As it gets into view, and then we're going to pause, right? We're going to pause so I can see the pretty heart. Yes, okay. There. Then I'll drag this back into here and share the screen. Oh, it didn't go with it. Okay. Well, thanks for being here in the first month of this show. It's really special to have you here because nobody knows how cool this show is yet. It's not even that cool yet, and it will be eventually. Okay, this is what I was trying to draw, that little heart-shaped spiral. That is what I drew in our weather the other day. Our terrestrial weather update the other day was this heart shape. Now, this was the shape that I traced on my touch screen, and this is the shape I can make with my mouse. So you're just going to have to bear with me as we're in slightly rinky-dink operation territory here with this broadcast. But you know what? That's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop me. Let's go to, let's look at the composite of this. Really interesting stuff. I'd love to see some of these solar flares pop off. I bet we can see them fizzling. And remember, each little blinky light, each little twinkly light is another solar flare. So we saw 13 of them today. So there should be a good number of twinkly brightness. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Arcing, and there looks like it's getting ready to do something else right before it gets out of view. And look, we've got like almost 4 quadrants of activity. You see how this is like it's like a wave. There are many waves here, but the big wave that I am talking about is how we've got this area and the other, like the side of the sun that's facing 90 degrees of us, like to the right, and then also the side of the sun that's about to rotate into Earth view here are very active. And then in the middle, we have these areas of relatively little action and these big coronal holes, which is kind of wild that the coronal holes are giving us quite active conditions when you would expect that out of the sunspots. Now, let's see if it shows up slightly different on the other sandwich one. I call it sandwich because it's 3 different levels sandwiched together: 171, 211, and 304 angstroms. Yeah, you can see the fizziness, like the carbonation effect of the sun better on this one. Oh, God, don't try to get me in the Navy. I'm never going to join the fucking Navy. Never. Not going to get me to drone bomb children. Never. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This is just going through. Oh, this is a fun one. Let me go back. Yeah, this one shows the magnetogram of these are the lines of magnetic flux that are going from one sunspot group to the other. And you see, we've got a lot on the other side of the coronal holes. That's really interesting. That almost implies that there's activity brewing underneath the holes. I wonder if it's like in the atmosphere where when you have divergence aloft, that implies that there's a low pressure system at the lower levels. And maybe the reason we're seeing so much activity from the holes is that there's something trying to percolate up. And once it gets to the top, it's basically done. I wonder if that's how it works. Very cool to see the positive and negative polarities like meeting up on the other sides of the holes too. It's like stitches going across the holes, kind of stitching the holes together almost. Really cool stuff. And then when those become stitched enough, they form filaments. And anyway, what I'm going on about is that our solar activity has greatly increased again, and I think that our last few days lull has been good for producing more activity soon. We have new regions rotating into Earth view. Solar protons still looking pretty chill. Solar activity still hovering barely into the C-class range. We've got, yeah, after we saw those giant spikes Friday night, we got almost into M-class territory. Very quiet. And this is, I think, our little lull. Well, we're missing data right there. So I wonder what happened between 1850 and 2020 UTC here. But really dipping very low in our X-ray flux today. So very cool. Not looking at too much of a magnetic storm risk. Let's see if we've got any auroral activity. What our KP index is looking like. Yeah, I mean, no, not looking great. Not looking great for all you aurora chasers out there. We're well into a northern phase of the BZ. That's the orientation of the magnetic field, north or south, like aligning with our north pole or south pole. And you want them mix matched. You want them to not be oriented in the same direction. So when BZ is in the southern phase, then that means that the blast of magnetic energy coming towards the Earth is opposite of our pole orientation, and that's when they meet up like magnets and pop off. Let's go now to look at today's planets, our current planetary weather, because that's the weather that goes beyond the sun. Remember, nothing is discrete, in my opinion, in the universe. Everything is waves, and you just have to zoom in more if you see a discrete boundary. The weather from our Earth goes all the way through space to the weather from our sun. They're all connected. Space is not. space being a vacuum doesn't mean there's nothing there. There's actually a lot there in what people think of as a vacuum of being like nothingness. If it were true nothingness, everything would eventually get sucked up into it. Like there's a gradient of existence and non-existence. Anyway, what am I saying? What I'm trying to say is pay attention to weather on all levels. And I believe that the effect of the rotation of the planets in our solar system does have a very slight effect on the interplanetary magnetic field and the interplanetary gravitational field, if you want to call it that. Let's see now. We've got Mercury just made its conjunction to Mars, and that's kind of just past our sun, just past where the sun has been. Yeah, so that would be in the area where all of those coronal holes are rotating into view of. So they'd be sending their blasts towards Mercury, Mars, and Venus now. Speaking of Venus, she is now making, again, that sextile between trine to Jupiter and sextile to Saturn, about to make a nice trine with the moon here in just a minute. Actually, we're in a moon hour of a Saturn day currently, so we have the sun moving into an opposition with Saturn, so we'd have this kite formation between the moon at apogee, mind you. Remember that astrologers aren't just making up stuff. There are actual physical realities represented by the points that we measure. And the black moon Lilith point is the apogee point of our of our satellite, the moon. Lunar apogee is when the moon is the farthest physically from the Earth in its rotation as possible. And then the nodes have to do with, like whether the nodes are where the moon passes through the ecliptic plane to be either a little above the Earth or above the ecliptic plane or a little below the ecliptic plane. So the nodes don't have to match up with where the apogee point is, because both the nodes and the apogee point have their own rotations around the Earth. There's a lot of ways that the moon spins, and it's so weird when you look at it. It's very weird. But anyway, what I was saying was we're going to have the moon the farthest away as it could be from Earth when we're making this kite formation opposing Saturn in Pisces. So we got the tension between the ethereal cosmic knowledge and the extremely grounded practical knowing where everything goes and where everything is on Earth knowledge. And that's making a grand Earth trine, really, between Jupiter, Venus, and the moon in Virgo. And then that is set off by the grand sextile between Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus. And you can look up what those terms mean. But a kite is like it looks like a kite, first of all. It's that one that's, let's see if I can get this in another color so I can draw it. Yeah. This is the kite. You'll be able to see why it's called a kite when I draw it. There we go. Doesn't that look like a kite? So the kite formation is a really good way to incorporate all those energies, but they're incorporated around the tension point between Saturn and the moon. So the opposition is like the grit, the al dente in the pasta of the dish, and all of the rest is like the sauce and the supporting characters. I think it's really beautiful to have both of the benefic signs in, like, the beneficial, the positive signs are planets, the benefic planets, Jupiter and Venus, framing up this square off between Saturn and the moon, really forcing us to look at what's our emotional connection. I mean, I always associate moon more with Pisces and Saturn more with Virgo, because in my chart and my experience, Virgo energy is harder to come by, and Pisces energy is extremely embodied for me. But we're seeing the reversal of that right now with hard disciplinarian Saturn, capitalist Saturn, daddy bringing home the bacon Saturn being in Pisces right now, which is why I think that we're going to see a lot of cults pop up in the next 3 years, because people are getting into the nitty-gritty capitalistic business of big cosmic thought and spiritual connection. That is being opposed by a really earthy, physically embodied, mutable, like just knows where everything goes and how things are supposed to be, Virgo, and not afraid of death. Virgo, Pisces representing death, and Virgo representing like uh not fearing death, like making peace with death, and the end of the harvest season, the end of the growing season associated with the harvest, like knowing that all good things have to come to an end in order for the good things to continue. Really feeling into that a death cycle, I feel like, but it's going to nourish us, looking at what we're letting go and being prudent about it. I don't know why prudent is just the word that I get. Like, what is emotionally prudent in this moment? I feel that from this kite energy. What's emotionally prudent, and how do we take action on it in this mid Capricorn, coming off the Mercury overtaking Mars conjunction. And then still counting this as a conjunction. I'm not sure why that orb is so large, but the sun is squaring Jupiter right now. So all of these conversations are happening while the sun is at 90 degrees to an important point in this kite. Our ego is not ready to admit some of the things that we need to let go of. Our ego is not ready to see what's emotionally prudent. And then for once, we don't have anything in aspect to Neptune and Pisces, which I feel like is probably really good for like clear-headed, rational thinking. Not having too many aspects to Neptune being the foggy, murky depths planet. Now, I guess I will stop sharing at this time. Oh, I forgot to mention that again, this Capricorn Mars and Mercury conjunction happened while it was basically trining Uranus and Taurus, and Uranus has stationed direct, I believe. We had this Mercury Mars conjunction right as we had the Uranus station direct, which is quite interesting. Uranus stationing direct, getting ready to head for the last decan of Taurus. Oh man. Oh buddy. Y'all aren't ready for Uranus in the Saturn ruled decan of Taurus. I'm just going to say it. I've been living here my whole life. I don't think everyone's ready for what kind of material changes are going to happen, but buddy, know where you're getting your food from. That's all I'm going to say. Know where you're getting your food from. Know how you would get food if all the grocery stores closed down. I'm not saying you have to become a prepper overnight, but maybe learning how to grow microgreens in your bedroom. Like, you don't have to have access to land to grow your own nutrients. Figure out how to get a little bit of sustenance. Figure out what is practically needed. What are the Capricorn being like kind of a minimalist king, like go off. I don't know. Let me just appropriate every term that I possibly can from AAVE. But Capricorn is like, would just eat a salt lick if it was nutritionally viable. I think, like, Capricorn, the sea goat, how is that not the goat that climbs up the mountain, said he craved that mineral? Just, you got to know bare bones basics of what are the nutrients you need in your diet and how can you acquire them most efficiently if your access to purchasing power is somehow compromised, or the things that you would be purchasing just aren't on shelves. Remember, we went through the pandemic in order to learn some stuff. And if you didn't learn that you need to be growing your own food, I'm telling you now, you need to be growing your own food. Maybe not all of it, but as we head into the leaner last decan of Taurus with this Uranus station direct, right as it's making that trine to Mercury and Mars, this just screams to me, are you ready for farmers to protest? Are you ready for farmers to protest? Because they already are protesting. Are you ready for farmers to protest because Ukrainian wheat is being shipped into Europe and driving their costs down because of the overinflated economic importance of keeping the Ukrainian economy alive while they're going on under this war onslaught? Are people mad that the EU is sending more money to Ukraine than it is to subsidize farmers in other European countries? I mean, Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe, but let's not forget that the rest of Europe is also a breadbasket. Like, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So very interesting. I'm not eager to see how this plays out. I'm just verily waiting to see. Yep. Remember where your survival comes from. It's not technology. It is food you can eat. You can't eat computers yet. Can't eat money either. So don't be afraid to spend it on a little indoor greenhouse setup. Don't be afraid of looking crazy, because Noah looked pretty crazy when he was building that ark, you know? Regardless of whatever global flood narrative you believe happened in history, whoever prepared for the flood and built a boat that eventually made it out was probably looked pretty crazy for a little bit. And yeah, that's how I feel about preppers now. Don't discount your preppers just because they don't agree with your, you know, don't write off preppers. They're not wrong. They're not right, but they're not wrong. Okay. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just trying to say, like, I mean, also spiritual connection to Earth and Mother Nature. A grand Earth trine and a beautiful kite in the early degrees of the Earth and water area is great way to buckle down. I feel like this is a great energy to buckle down. Start planning your gardens, not planting, but planning. What are we going to grow this year? What seeds are we going to start? Are we going to investigate electroculture and magnetoculture? Are we going to Google what those words are? Maybe y'all should look up. I think there's nothing more Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus than looking into how you can use magnets and copper coils of wire to increase the productivity of your garden beds. Guys, look it up. Look up what pyramid shapes are actually for. You can increase your germination rate by storing your seeds inside of a copper square pyramid. Pyramid shapes are really good for aligning the magnetic orientation. You want to keep the seeds planted in the same orientation too, but anyway, as we go into times where we're going to have issues with crops behaving weirdly, as we go into preparing for Uranus and Gemini, which is often associated with famines, let's look at our history and figure out what the most reasonable, practical, and like economically efficient and healthy and nutritious ways of producing food are. Let's not depend on petrochemical fertilizers and diesel fuel for our agroeconomy. Let's depend on better nutrient cycling and complete ecosystems in order to enrich our food with better, more complex nutrients. Yeah, I'm not trying to scare anyone. I am just born with a natal chart that exposes me to some of the I have a little bit of a sense of what's coming in the later decan of Taurus and in the later decan of Pisces. And actually almost all of my planets are in the last decan, which is pretty challenging, but I'm here. I'm here. I've been putting my nose to the grindstone for 30 years studying this stuff just to tell you guys, like, I love you very much and I want you to survive. Don't be afraid. Just be like fearlessly joyful about planting stuff. Because also planting a garden out of fear isn't going to help thing. Like, you can't scare yourself into survival. That's one thing that I think preppers are missing is fear is also not a good way to survive. It actually shuts down your survival, your regulation in your body to be in fear mode. Being in growth mode helps a lot. Hello, Robin. I'm so happy to see you. I'm sorry I missed your message there. I'm glad that you're here. I hope it's not weird that I'm just ranting about food when this was supposed to be a weather update, but weather is food and food is weather. Food is the weather inside of your body. Your metabolism, that's heat. Okay. Let's go ahead and get a little message from the cosmos. Let's see what the galactic fill in the blank has to say for us. Let me see here. So glad to have all of you here with me today. All right. You know what? I'm actually going to shuffle this today. I haven't done a good shuffle in a while, and it's calling for me to shuffle. How do I get these? What does it feel like to have something calling to you? Just like examine what feels true and what doesn't feel true. The way that they calibrate. I'm not going to talk about the statistical significance of how accurate lie detector tests are, but the way that you would theoretically calibrate a lie detector test is to ask questions that you know are true or false at the beginning and see what the person's body does in response to that. And so that's how you can figure out these intuitive messages that people are always talking about. Like, you don't start out hearing audible voices of God usually, but if you want to get a better sense of your gut instinct and your gut reactions, feel how it feels in your body to think about something that you know is true, and feel how it feels in your body to think about something that you know is false. And start there. Your body is an instrument of sensing the world, and that includes truth and fiction. But sometimes we also have some programming laid in top of these bodies and deep within these bodies that sometimes our programming doesn't allow us to sense what is true and false until we shed it. And we got to purge that, figure out where it's coming from. Most of it's fear-based, because we are coming out of an age of being programmed really heavily with fear. But again, I'm always trying to say, like, don't operate out of fear. But it's really hard when everything's so scary. But really operating out of like known truth and faith that abundance is the actual law of the universe outside of this really harsh three-dimensional world can help us have some faith. All right, y'all. Let's see. Oh, that's great. I pulled that right as I breathed deeply. As I breathe deeply, I feel myself thrive. Thriving is as natural as breathing itself. By relaxing often and breathing deeply, your natural thriving is enhanced. Remember, we're entraining our bodies to become part of the universe we want to create. We're entraining our breath to be as relaxed and free-flowing as we hope all the abundance will be. Oh, did you guys hear that? That's my spine, or not my spine, my front spine, my sternum cracking. It's also really good to breathe in through your nose because scientifically it increases the oxidation of your mucosal layer. Basically, it gets air to your boogers, is what I just said. Increases oxidation to your mucosal layer of your nasal cavities. Just means get air in your boogers, and that increases nitric oxide production in that mucosal layer, which is part of what it's for. And increasing nitric oxide in your body, both can take oxygen from the free radicals because it's getting nitrogen from the air, increasing with the free radical oxygen in your body. Well, the oxidate. What I'm talking about is nitric oxide help you feel good in your body. That's not my area of science. It's just something I've picked up along the way. So go look up somebody else's research about nitric oxide and the effect it has on your emotional regulation. It really helps. And that's why deep breathing activities are so effective. That's one of the most scientifically concrete ways of showing why deep breathing and meditation helps. Now I'm going to do some tarot clarifying. All right. Clarifying cards for as I breathe deeply, I feel myself thrive. These are messages from the cosmos. This is cosmological weather. This is galactic weather beyond our solar system coming in and telling us stuff through the cards. Allegedly, in my opinion. Now, I'm not really a card reader. I'm a vibe reader. So remember that these are just reflections of the vibes out in space. All right. Let's just pull one clarifying card for this. All right. Got the Two of Cups, in and out. The Two of Cups representing a marriage, a deal, kind of the minor arcana version of the Lover's card in some people's opinions. Also related to Hippocrates and the staff of, what is this called again? The two snakes around the staff. I forget what it's called in the Greek tradition, but it has to do with the medical tradition and seeing the griffin arising above that and seeing peace made between the blue and the yellow. Blue representing feminine and yellow representing masculine, kind of non-binary energy, and cups representing water, partnership, duality, the two energy, being like me and you, bud, black and white, mano a mano, but also it can be healthy and breathe in and breathe out. You need breathe in just as much as you need breathe out. You need masculine and just as much as you need feminine. You need the in breath and the out breath. And I mean, in a dualistic worldview, you can divide everything into the in breath and the out breath. Inspiration and exhalation. Inspiration being masculine and exhalation being feminine, or the reverse of that, because they reverse all the way up and down. When you get into deeper spiritual significances, they invert and revert themselves. Okay, I'm not going to get onto that too much, but all dualities can be their own opposite once they've ascended high enough. Sorry, didn't mean to transcode your life, but yeah, you do got to master your own divine gender opposite in order to really realize the full self. Just as you need to breathe in, just as much as you need to breathe out. Breathing in and breathing out, making peace with each other. That's how I'm seeing it. Usually, I mean, I got the Two of Swords the other day, and I think that's also more like breathe in and breathe out, but there's also a water element to breathing in and breathing out because it fuels the waters of the body. Yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. I want to know, I do really like seeing the flower they picked for this is a kind of umbel shaped blossom that has sevens, like 6 points with a center. I think that is really beautiful too. Put into context with this deal making between two parties, between two extremes, and sharing the cup, breaking the bread, having communion. Very interesting stuff. All right, y'all, I believe that will be it for today. Don't forget to relax and temper your anxiety with relaxation, and don't forget to be motivated. If you are already pretty relaxed, remember that you have to do something. You're not just here to feel relaxed only. You're here to do something out of that peace that the rest of the world doesn't have in order to increase the peace throughout the world. All right. I think that is pretty much it for today's episode of Today's Weather Tonight. I love you all very much. Don't forget that we do broadcast from YouTube as well as Twitter and Facebook, if that's where you're finding me. So go subscribe on YouTube, like or comment. It really helps the algorithm. I don't really care about the algorithm because growth will happen when it's supposed to happen, but it would help if you, I don't know. It would help if you engage there. I also have a cool community tab where I get to share my favorite videos about other subjects that I don't go in deep depth about, but I'm sharing my sources basically on the community tab. So if you want more in-depth geologist, volcanologist news, more in-depth spiritual analysis of the energy that the sun brings to us, head over to my community tab on YouTube, because that's where I'm recommending all of my favorite sources of information. I'm just the vibeologist, I'm just the vibologer out here. I'm not the expert in everything. I'm just pretty good at seeing how everything's a vibe. All right. I love you guys very much. I've already said that so many times. It's time to end the stream. Have a great evening, and I will see you on Sunday. Bye.